God bless NFRW. You know, there is no force in all of politics like Republican women. Let me say, Carrie, thank you for the very, very kind introduction, and congratulations, Madam President-elect. And Madam President, congratulations on the end of your term. There are few jobs better in an organization than to be former presidents. I am thrilled to be with so many friends here today. You know, I have to tell you, I would not be in the United States Senate were it not for Republican women. Many of y'all know Kay Goolsbee, our National Grassroots Chairman. Where's Kay? Over and over again, Kay would remind me, Republican women are the heart and soul and brains of the Republican Party. And I got to tell you, the women in here, this is a room of patriots. This is a room of fighters. This is a room of women that stand up and win elections and that are going to save this country. I have to admit I'm particularly blessed because I spend every day surrounded by my three favorite Republican women. Many of y'all have gotten to meet my wife Heidi, who spent all of yesterday and today here. And we've got two little girls, Caroline and Catherine. Caroline is 7, Catherine's 4. I remember back a few years ago when Caroline was just 3 years old. Catherine was a baby. And we took the girls down to the beach to vacation. We were vacationing with some friends that had some little girls as well. And Caroline wanted to go in the car with her friends, and there wasn't room. And so she proceeded to fall to the floor and begin kicking and screaming and crying and yelling. I'm sure none of y'all have ever had a child do that to you. Well, Heidi, my wife, she was tough. And she sat Miss Caroline down. She gave her a talking to that young lady remembered. She shaped up. We went to dinner, had a wonderful dinner. We went back to the hotel room. And Caroline is saying her goodnight prayers. She's down on her knees. And she looks up and she goes, "Dear Jesus, tonight we had a situation. And I'm not sorry, but it's not going to happen again." And I have to tell you, Heidi and I just bit our tongues not to laugh at that precious, precious prayer of a child. But in those words are an observation about where our country is right now. Let me ask you, how many of y'all saw the debate last month in Cleveland? How fantastic is it that we have so many talented, young, charismatic leaders stepping forward to lead this party and to lead the country. And what a contrast with the Democrats. You know, I'm pretty sure the first Democratic debate is going to consist of Hillary Clinton and the Chipotle clerk. Well, no. Actually, that's not fair. That's not fair. We can't forget about Bernie Sanders. So now the Democratic field consists of a wild-eyed socialist with ideas that are dangerous for America and the world, and Bernie Sanders. And I have to say, it's pretty remarkable seeing the Democrats as they keep delaying their debates. First it was going to be September, then October, then November. You know, I think they may just delay their debates till 2017. It's not widely known, but the Democrats had planned an earlier debate. The problem was the debate invitation was emailed to Hillary. You know, we are here today because our country's in crisis. We're here today because we're bankrupting our kids and grandkids. Because our constitutional rights are under assault. Because America has receded from leadership in the world, and it's made the world a much more dangerous place. And yet I'm here this afternoon with a word of hope and optimism and encouragement. All across this country, America is waking up. And let me tell you, help is on the way. So I want to ask everyone here to look forward. Look forward to January 2017. If I am elected president, let me tell you what I intend to do on the first day in office. The first thing I intend to do in office is rescind every single illegal and unconstitutional executive action President Obama likes to say he's got a phone and he's got a pen. Well, you live by the pen, you die by the pen. And my pen has got an eraser. But sadly, the corruption hasn't just been limited to the White House. It is extended to every branch of the federal government. And the second thing I intend to do on the first day in office is instruct the U.S. Department of Justice to open an investigation into Planned Parenthood and these horrible videos. The administration of justice should be blind to party or ideology. The only fidelity at the Department of Justice should be to the laws and the Constitution of the United States of America. The third thing I intend to do on the first day in office is instruct the Department of Justice and the IRS and every other federal agency that the persecution of religious liberty ends today. That means that every serviceman and woman has the right to worship God with all of his heart, mind, and soul, and his commanding officer has nothing to say about it. That means the Little Sisters of the Poor, a Catholic charity being persecuted by the Obama administration, will find that the lawsuit against them has been dismissed. The fourth thing I intend to do on the first day in office is rip to shreds this catastrophic Iranian nuclear deal. About a month ago, I observed that if this deal goes through, the Obama administration will become quite literally the world's leading financier of radical Islamic terrorism. Now, in response, President Obama got very upset. I do so hate to dismay the man. He interrupted his busy world travels in between the 8th and 9th holes to attack me directly. He said what Cruz said is ridiculous. You can't use that rhetoric. That rhetoric is too much. You can't say that. Let me give you a very, very simple principle. Truth is not rhetoric. And in the entire course of his attack, he didn't actually bother to try to dispute any of the substance of what I'd said. So let's review the facts. Fact number one, Iran is today the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism. Fact number two, if this deal goes through, over $100 billion will flow directly to Iran, to the Ayatollah Khamenei. And fact number three, if that happens, billions of those dollars will go directly to Hamas, to Hezbollah, to the Houthis, to radical Islamic terrorists, and those jihadists will use those billions to murder Americans, to murder Israelis, and to murder Europeans. If President Obama doesn't like the rhetoric of his administration becoming the world's leading financier of radical Islamic terrorism, there is an easy solution. Stop financing radical Islamic terrorism. The fifth thing I intend to do on the first day in office is begin the process of moving the American embassy in Israel to Jerusalem, the once and eternal capital of Israel. And an awful lot of presidential candidates have made that exact same promise, both Democrats and Republicans. And inevitably they get to the White House and they don't do it. Their teams come to them and say, if we do this, there's going to be some other folks in the Middle East really, really unhappy with us. Well, if you hadn't noticed, they're already pretty unhappy with us. And I'll tell you the single biggest difference between me and the other very fine candidates standing on that debate stage in Cleveland is that with me, when I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do exactly what I said I would do. That's day one. There are 365 days in a year, 4 years in a presidential term, and 4 years in a second term. By the end of 8 years, there are going to be a whole lot of newspaper editors and reporters and journalists who've checked themselves into therapy. In the days that follow, I will go to Congress, and we will repeal every word of Obamacare. We're going to pass common sense health care reform that makes health insurance personal and portable and affordable and keeps government from getting in between us and our doctors. In the days that follow, I will instruct the Federal Department of Education, which should be abolished, I will instruct the Federal Department of Education that Common Core ends today. In the days that follow, we will rebuild our military and we will honor the commitments made to every soldier and sailor and airman and marine. And we will protect every serviceman and woman's constitutional right to keep and bear arms and defend themselves. That means the next time a jihadist walks into a recruiting center in Chattanooga, he's going to meet the business end of firearms wielded by a dozen Marines. In the days that follow, we will stand up and make absolutely clear that we will defeat radical Islamic terrorism. And that will start by having a commander-in-chief willing to utter the words, radical Islamic terrorism. And our strategy, to borrow a phrase from Ronald Reagan in the Cold War, is very simple. We win, they lose. That means making clear to every militant on the face of the globe, if you go and join ISIS, if you take up arms and wage jihad against the United States of America seeking to murder innocent men and women, you are signing your death warrant. In the days that follow, we will finally secure the borders and end sanctuary cities. And we will stop the Obama administration's indefensible policy of releasing violent, criminal, illegal aliens. And we'll pass Kate's Law. In the days that follow, we will take on the EPA. And the CFPB, and the alphabet soup of federal agencies that have descended on small businesses and are strangling jobs, and we will unleash economic growth and booming growth for the next generation. In the days that follow, I will go to Congress, and we will pass fundamental tax reform. We will pass a simple flat tax. That means every American can fill out his or her taxes on a postcard. And when we do that, we should abolish the IRS. There are about 90,000 employees at the IRS. We need to padlock that building. Take all 90,000 and put them down on our southern border. Now, to our friends in the media, I say that somewhat tongue-in-cheek. But if you could think about it, imagine, man, you traveled thousands of miles in the blazing sun. You're swimming across the Rio Grande. And the first thing you see is 90,000 IRS agents. You turn around and go home too. Now, some of y'all may be thinking, all of that makes sense to me. It's simple common sense. Live within your means. Don't bankrupt our kids and grandkids. Follow the Constitution. But can it be done? Can we do it? Well, you know, Scripture tells us there's nothing new under the sun. I think where we are today is very, very much like the late 1970s. I think the parallels are uncanny. Same failed economic policies. Same misery, stagnation, and malaise. The same feckless and naive foreign policies. In fact, the exact same countries, Russia and Iran, openly laughing at and mocking the President of the United States. Now, why is it that that analogy gives me so much hope and optimism? Because we know how that story ended. All across this country, millions of men and women rose up and became the Reagan Revolution. And it didn't come from Washington. Washington despised Ronald Reagan. By the way, if you see a candidate who Washington embraces, run and hide. It came from the American people. It came from many of the women gathered in this ballroom. It rose up from the people, and it turned this country around. We went from stagnation to booming growth, millions lifted into prosperity in the American dream. We went from our hostages languishing in Iran to winning the Cold War and tearing the Berlin Wall to the ground. Why am I so optimistic? Because the same thing is happening again. All over the country. You know, when we launched our campaign, March 23rd at Liberty University, the mainstream media had an aneurysm. The New York Times promptly opined, Cruz cannot win because the Washington elites despise him. I kind of thought that was the whole point of the campaign. Look, if you think things are going great in Washington, that we need to continue heading in the same direction, just kind of fiddle around the edges, then I ain't the guy. On the other hand, if you think Washington is fundamentally broken, that there is a bipartisan corruption of career politicians in both parties that get in bed with the lobbyists and special interests and grow and grow and grow government, and we need to take power out of Washington and back to we the people. That is what this campaign is all about. Well, the Times continued. They said, okay, maybe the grassroots are going to be with Cruz. But he ain't going to have any money. Because the Washington elites, they control all the money. And the lobbyists, they're all backing other candidates who aren't going to rock the boat, who are going to keep that gravy train flowing. A little over a month ago, all the campaigns filed their financial disclosures. Out of 17 Republican candidates, do you know which campaign raised the most hard money? We did. In just over 3 months together, we raised over $14.3 million. Second place was Jeb Bush at $11.4 million. Now, Kathy, if I'd have suggested to you 6 months ago that we were going to outraise every candidate in the field, including outraising Jeb Bush by $3 million, you'd have thought I was bark at the moon crazy. But do you know how we did it? That came from over 175,000 contributions. In all 50 states, people all over the country going to tedcruz.org. 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 It's tedcruz.org. Our average contribution was $68. That is the power of the grassroots. I want to close with two things. First of all, for everyone here, freedom is not some abstract concept we read about in the school book. Freedom is personal. It's real. It's our families. You know, for me, I think of my mom. My mom is Irish-Italian. Born in Wilmington, Delaware. Working class family. Her mom was the second youngest of 17 kids. They were Irish Catholic. They didn't know what else to do on a Saturday night. My mom became the first person in her family ever to go to college. When she was in high school, her father was transferred down to Houston. And my mom applied and got in and attended Rice University. Now, my grandfather, my mom's dad, was not an easy man. He was an alcoholic. And he didn't think women should be educated. And he certainly didn't think his daughter should be the first person in the family to go to college. But my mom stood up to her dad. She stood up, she went to Rice, and she graduated in 1956 with a degree in math. She went to work at Shell as a computer programmer. Now, you want to talk about two industries, oil and gas and computer science, neither one of which was very welcoming to women. My mom was at the intersection of them both. My mom used to tell me she very deliberately didn't learn how to type.
No kidding.
She said, look, it was the 1950s. I understood the world I was living in. She said, I didn't want to be walking down the hall and have a man walk up to me and say, sweetheart, would you type this for me? My mom wanted to be able to smile very, very sweetly and with a clean conscience say, I would love to help you out, but I don't know how to type. I guess you're going to have to use me as a computer programmer instead. My mom turned 80 last year. She's a woman of incredible courage, incredible love. She is an amazing grandmother to our 2 little girls. She's been a best friend to me my whole life. And then I think of my dad. For those of you who know my dad, you know in my family, I'm the shy, retiring one. My dad was born in Cuba. And he grew up in Cuba. He fought in the Cuban Revolution. And when he was a teenager, he was thrown in prison and tortured by Batista's army. When my dad was 17, he found himself in the mud, in a Cuban jail cell with his nose shattered, with his teeth dangling from his mouth. He told me that he remembered thinking at the time, he said, I don't have any kids. I don't have any family. It doesn't matter if I live or I die. But thankfully, God had different plans for my father. He fled Cuba in 1957. He came to America. He was 18 years old. He had nothing. Had $100 sewn into his underwear by my grandmother. He couldn't speak English. And his first job was washing dishes, making 50 cents an hour. He worked 7 days a week. Paid his way through school. And he and my mother went on to start a small business together. Today, my dad is a pastor. He travels the country preaching the gospel. You know, when I was a kid, my dad used to say to me over and over again, when we faced oppression in Cuba, I had a place to flee to. If we lose our freedom here, where do we go? That is why all of us are here today. The final thing I want to say is this. We are building a grassroots army. Let me tell you what the Washington establishment wants. They want conservatives to be splintered. They want us to be divided. They want some conservatives over here. They want evangelicals over here. They want libertarians over there. They want Tea Party folks over there. That's how a Washington establishment candidate runs right through the middle with 23% of the vote and steals the nomination. And if that happens, we lose the general election to Hillary Clinton. The stakes are too high for that. I am convinced with every fiber in my body it is now or never. There comes a point where the hole's too deep, where our liberties have been taken too far away, where we've receded too much in the world that there's no going back. We're not at the point of no return yet, but we are close. This election will be decided by the grassroots. I gotta tell you, the women gathered in this ballroom, y'all scared the living daylights out of Washington. one simple thing of each of you. Join us. We are building a grassroots movement on the ground. It'll start in Iowa. It'll go to New Hampshire. It'll go to South Carolina. It'll go to Nevada. It'll go through Super Tuesday, through the South. It'll move from state to state to state, coming from the ground. Well, Heidi is a native Californian. But I would ask every one of you this evening, when you get back to your room, go to our website, tedcruz.org, and sign up and volunteer. Contribute. Listen, some of y'all can max out. If you can, God love you. You have my word, every penny will be spent spreading a positive, optimistic, hopeful, conservative vision for turning this country around. But everyone here can give something. Whether it's $10 or $25 or $50 or $100. And the biggest reason to do that is that when you go and contribute, you got skin in the game. You're invested. Then it's not my campaign. Then it's our campaign. This campaign will be decided by the grassroots. This campaign will be decided by Republican women in your communities, with your friends, with your loved ones, standing up and making the calls, getting on the phone and calling your mom, calling your son, calling your next door neighbor, calling your college roommate, calling your business partner, and saying, listen, this election matters. It matters for my kids. It matters for my grandkids. It matters for the future of this country. There is no force more powerful than we the people rising up. The reason we are here today is because we are not prepared to go quietly into the night. We are not prepared to give up on our kids and grandkids. We will stand for freedom. We will stand for the Constitution. And together, we will bring back that last best hope for mankind, that is the United States of America. Thank you, and God bless you.